Welcome to this video on the changes introduced by the Et Impera 1.2.3 update that was released on the 25th of June 2018 if you're watching this in the future. The structure of this video is going to be a quick overview of the changes in this screen, then we'll go in and have a look at the Carthage campaign and the Marian campaign just to show you some of the new features. I might flip to one or two others just to highlight some of the minor features. I won't be going into Rome for the specific reason is the fact that most of the changes to Rome are to do with appearance, and I did consider doing the new appearances of all the different units that have been introduced by this update, but I think it would just make the video too long. What I will do is, if I can find the time, is I will make separate videos on the appearances. So what is in this update? Well, I think I'm going to give the first account to the Et Impera team, which I'd like to extend my great thanks to. Another great job, well done. Although one slight gripe, guys, you've done it to me again. I've only just recently finished the Carthage campaign, and after looking at this update, I want to do another one now. It's fantastic. Anyway, what is in this update? Well, this update consists of major overhauls for Carthage, Rome and the Marians. Now, if any of you guys not too sure where the Marians faction is in Et Impera, it actually shows up as Taxila, just to show you here. So the Taxila faction here is actually the Marians, as it says here, because the Marian Empire actually started in India and spread west and squeezes in on the edge of the campaign map for Rome too. And there is also a new resource in the form of spice. Now, spice comes in from the east, and we'll have a look at that in the context of the Taxila and Bactria. There's some changes in that area. They've also introduced new provincial and special capitals for Pella and Bribbract. Bribbract is interesting as this is going to be the first custom barbarian settlement that the dev team have approached, and congratulations to the guys. I'm really looking forward to maybe you expanding that over time. And the provincial capitals are now being renamed to reflect government types and I think local cultures. So instead of the usual standard name for a whole faction, now what we should be able to see now is different types that's going to reflect the faction's approach to government. So that's going to be quite an interesting element that's going to be introduced. They've now introduced the new foreign quarter buildings. Now, if any of you guys are not familiar with this, I'm pretty sure this was a new feature that was introduced by CA in the Power and Politics DLC. This is where you can actually build buildings that promote foreign culture inside of your faction, but it does give fringe benefits and it does help you out to a certain degree. So the mod team have been able to get that mechanic included into the game now. There's been changes to the mercenary recruitment. They've now increased the upkeep and support by 25%. And finally, there's been some changes to the population effects. They've now introduced the fact that some of the civil technologies now actually improve population growth. I think it's mainly in the mid-tier, level 2, level 3 population. I think it could vary from faction to faction. I haven't looked at that in great detail. Now, Carthage, the successors, and Rome have also got the extra bonus of being able to promote the growth of the population groups, which is the lowest level for the recruitment of auxiliaries and mercenaries and military techs. When we get in to look at the Carthage campaign on the map, I'll be showing you that, guys. And they've also, what they've done is they've actually adjusted the population growth for various cultures to reflect the cultures and to give a bit more variety in the game, because I think up until now it's all been fairly standard, and I think I'm going to be putting my hand up here, guys. I don't really pay that much attention to population growth unless it starts to become a problem. Hopefully now that these changes will now add a slightly new dimension to the game. And the final point in this introduction is that the class 1 population is now less affected by overcrowding, which I think is quite useful from the start of Rome, if I remember correctly, because I think when you start Rome you actually start with overcrowding in a quite odd way. Well, that's a quick overview of all the features we're going to be looking at. There's some other features which I will include. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to go and load the Carthage campaign, because that's got the biggest number of changes. So I'll see you once we get on the Carthage campaign map. Welcome to the Carthage campaign map, and just to show you, nothing is actually changed on the overall start. What I will point out is this button here. I'm not sure why it's appearing here. This is the change capital button. I'm not sure that it should be here, and that might be a slight bug that needs to be fixed. You can see it seems to be floating above the bar rather than being attached to where it should be. Oops. Is the settlement here. It's not a big problem as long as you're aware of it, guys. And if any of you are not sure what I'm actually mean by change capital, this is a new feature introduced as part of the update 1.2.3. What you do is you literally click on here, and then what you do is there. So you can actually move your capital to anywhere you want. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to move your capital to a minor region in a single province, but I can see it quite useful. I can see for anyone who's into role playing, it's going to be quite fun to move your capital to Rome and become a new Roman Empire. And I think just to show you now, see, so you can click this and it says move, but it doesn't tell you where it is. So there's risks involved in actually doing that, guys. So you need to be a little bit careful with that button. Anyway, stop playing with the move capital button. And what I want to do is, so we're going to start with Corellis, because I want to show you the new names for the colonies. These are the Phoenician names. Obviously, this is going to vary from faction to faction. You can see we've got colony, large colony, Phoenician colony, large Phoenician colony, and then we've got the Hadzat and influential Hadzat. Then we've got this allied tribal capital and allied tribal government. So this is the new names that's been reflected in there. I think it's quite, I think it just adds a bit more immersion to the game. I quite like that. I mean, it's really fantastic. And we'll get into the units later on. The next thing I want to show you is the new population names for Carthage. If they will stay up there, you can see that there's now 3 new population groups. One's called the Phoenicians. These are the true full-blooded Carthaginians who rule the empire, I suppose the best way to describe it. Then you've got Libby Phoenicians. This represents the intermarriage and melding of the Phoenician colony with the locals, and they're your kind of middle class. Then you've got your subjects. These are effectively your colonists who are living inside of the colonies there. Then they've got no real links to the Phoenician aristocracy. But of course at the bottom you've got our jolly old foreigners. Now that is more cosmetic, but at the same time it just adds to the immersion of the game, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think while we're still talking about this, we'll just go straight into the technologies. I've got to find these now. Now, for all factions, they've now introduced the ability, and it can vary, so don't take it the fact that fertilization is going to be the same, but you can see now that the tech has this now ability to stimulate second or third class population or regions. I think there's a first class one up here. Now Carthage, Rome and the successor kingdoms also have a boost in this level here. You can see so that you get a boost for mercenary at 3rd and 4th class, because of course you're drawing your mercenaries from the 4th class lower down. So that reflects the Carthaginians' dependence on mercenaries. I'm not sure if there's any further up. I can't remember now. No, maybe it's just that boost there. So that's the changes to the population growth. As I say, we've done the new update button. Now we're going to get into the what you can call the really interesting part of the changes. We'll come back to the Iberian immigrants in a little while later. What I want to do is just show you here. Now they've introduced this now mercenary recruitment chain. It's mercenary procurer, mercenary camp, and embassy. And what you can see here, so what Carthage effectively has now is their own dedicated mercenary pool, is probably the best way to describe it. And it's going to be quite interesting, but I've noticed one slight wrinkle in the sense that if I show you this Bellaris Fundatoris, now these guys have a recruitment cost of 1,100 and an upkeep cost of 253. Now if I click on the army here and look at this mercenary troop here, these are Balearic mercenary slingers. Now they've got virtually the same stats as the other guys, but they're more expensive to recruit, but they're actually cheaper to maintain. So if I just flip back here and just come into here, you can see here the stats look as far as I can tell, exactly the same. And I think this spins into what's going to be an element of the gameplay that obviously if I was starting here, I'd just build that because I would want my normal troops here to fight in Iberia because I can recruit my mercenaries using the normal mercenary recruitment process. But be aware now, mercenaries cost 25% more to recruit and 25% more to actually maintain. But the real strategy is going to come in, say, once we've started expanding out this way, and in that mercenary pool, okay, just come back to here. If you've got some units with some good stats, I mean, some of them are very, very good actually. Let's see if I can just get in here. It's a bit awkward. I've kind of come this way than here. So if you look here, 54, 26, and I actually compared one or two others. I think it's the Iberian Scutari. You can see here these guys have got what recruitment costs 1,250, 288. They've actually got more armor, and I don't know if if there's a Scutari in here. Don't want that. So let's just have a quick look. Yeah, it's not going to give me the stats. There we are, Scutari, and you can see these guys are got melee attack, but they've actually got less armor. So that's a mercenary Scutari, and as I say, he's got more melee attack 62, armor of 14. And if we come in here, and if I can find them again, where are you, Scutari? Come up here. You can see these guys got less melee attack, but they've got more armor. So they are subtly different. So that's something to think about, guys, when you're planning your strategy for Carthage. I mean, they might come and rebalance them, but I quite like those subtle differences. It intrigues me. I like to use different troops when the opportunity to get. And of course, we're now going to get on to the next building here, which is this new local, I'd say, Iberian immigrants. And this is going to be an interesting change. As I mentioned in the introduction, this was a feature in the Power and Politics update, and the Et Impera team have now mixed this in. I can see the advantages of diplomacy. There's some cash coming from it. You get some one extra garrison unit, Iberian Mileti, so not particularly that good. Now there's obviously going to be risks with building these buildings because you're going to have the effect of cultural influence. Just to show you guys, if I come here, if any of you are not familiar with cultural influence, so this is the Iberian one here. So what you'd be doing is by building this area here, you would be increasing the effect of your cultural details. I think this is going to be useful because of the cultural influence and the fact that, as far as I know, we're just going to check it. And of course you can build these at both levels. You can see these are Sicilian immigrants, and I'm assuming, and you can see, but the general stats, actually let's guess, wow, yeah, they all seem to be about +3, +2. Now the best way I can example I can give you is that, for argument's sake, sorry, it's going to have to be a bit there, say like I did in my Carthage campaign, you got a border here, especially if you're playing Rome. What you could do is, once you've got out here and you've got the text to support the cultural conversion and the units, because there are texts that promote cultural conversion, say you've got factions that are the same culture of where you've occupied, you could build these buildings out on the edge, and that would give you a diplomatic boost. Then what that would do is allow you to settle down your northern neighbours, keep them happy, have a diplomatic relationship with them, and that would be quite. I think it could work. I mean, that's my first strategy. I mean, there could be other reasons for it. There could be temporary buildings, but be aware that if you build one of these, they are expensive to knock down. But I suppose 500 to build that up. So I suppose that's another way you could use them, is actually to keep your allies happy, to feel that you've got a relationship with them, or your satrapies or client states. I mean, maybe that's another way to do it. I mean, I don't know. What's your opinion, guys? Anyway, so I think I'm not going to labour that anymore. And of course, what we're going to now look at is the new units. Now, there are new units, yes. but at the same time there's a lot of the old favourites are still in here. But of course what we've got now here is we've got these troops here, and then of course we're going to come up to here. We got a new chariot unit. I don't recall Carthage ever having a chariot unit before. It looks pretty good. The only thing that does confuse me a little bit, it says it can fire whilst moving, and it's got a mighty knockback for charges, but it doesn't seem to have any ammunition. So I'm not sure if that's a bug, an error, or whether the ammunition stat is actually hidden. So that could be an issue with the heavy chariots, the fact that they don't have ammunition. I mean, it could be just the fact it hasn't been added to this description, but I think if we come here, so we got that. Now Carthage now has 3 types of elephant to reflect the different breeds that the Carthaginians had access to, and they've all got some stats. I mean, I think this is the one that was always there. They've now got this Quasintum Alpellum. It costs more, it's got a bit more upkeep, it's actually got a bit more charge bonus, a bit more melee defense, a bit more armor, base morale, and of course what you've got next level down is this one here, which is I would say is heavily armored there, because you can see the armor's 42 compared to 38 there. So I mean, there's no more troops there. So that's going to be interesting. I must admit, I was always reluctant to use elephants too much in my Carthage campaign, because unless you could get good mercenary elephants, you would tend to just have this one, and it was a bit, the morale was a bit weak. I think that's enough of this, guys. The other thing I will mention is the fact that the reform system has been changed for Carthage. It's no longer based on Imperium, because quite right, as they said, is that if you start come in here, Carthage already starts with fairly high Imperium, so with a bit of expansion you can get very, very quickly up to the level that would actually unlock the reforms. So what they've actually done now is they've locked it to the Hellenic reforms, which is turn-based. So there's that issue there. Right, I think that's about it, guys. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to quit out, and we'll have a look at the Taxilla Rota and the new spice resource and how it's been introduced into the game. So I'll see you when we get there. Oh well, here we are. We are on the campaign start for, well, it's actually Taxilla, but they are the representatives of the Mauryan Empire, which have come in from the East Indias out here. So this is the starting position if you want to play as the Mauryan Empire. And as I say, it's Taxilla. It's quite an unusual faction to play. I've been really looking forward to play it for a long time, and after this update that has risen really close to the top of my list, and I'm just going to explain the reasons why. The main change to this faction is that all the units have had their appearances reworked, and you've now got multiple new units being added to the roster. And I'm just going to show it to you guys. Oops, don't want to do that. So we're just going to come in here. So we go, I mean, these are the fairly base units, but these are pretty good guys. I mean, you've got some pretty powerful archers here, which are going to be quite handy. And of course, when you go to the tier 2, it doesn't change, you just get a bit of garrison. But I think when you get to tier 3, this is where you're getting into the awesome division. And what I strongly recommend, if you really want to get a flavour for this faction, fire up a custom battle and put some of these units out on the field and take a good look at them. These guys are really awesome with these great big clubs. I suppose I wouldn't call them maces. I think these are more club-like maces here. These swordsmen look pretty ferocious. I mean, Thracians look pretty formidable with their long swords, but these guys are in a different league. Even the spearmen, I don't know if you can see here, if you just look at the top there, the spearmen there have got a very unique tip to them. I mean, it's a very good rounded faction, and yeah, all round, I mean, as I say, I really would love to play with these. And so that's the infantry, and what we're going to do now is just have a look at the cavalry options. So we've just got here, and we'll go down the actual proper cav first. So we've got heavy horse studs, and that opens up the chariots. I mean, let's go have a quick look. I don't know if these are got there again. these guys have got Parthian shot and Cambrian circle, but I don't see any ammunition on them again. I don't know if this is a feature of the stats of chariots. I mean, I would have thought if you've gone to the trouble of giving them Cambrian circle and fire while moving and Parthian shot, that you would actually give them ammunition, but oh well, never mind. That's the nature of the game. I mean, this light cav looks pretty good. I think these guys are, yeah, medium cav. They're reasonable charge bonus. Yep, I think they're quite good. Then of course, come down here, we've got some more. Wow, 86. I mean, the charge bonuses aren't good, but again, I think you've got some fairly good ammunition. 7 ammunition. Yep, pretty expensive to recruit though. And then of course, if we come down this path, we got the real heavyweights of this faction. We got the elephants here. I mean, the stats are pretty good, and they've got some very good armor on them as well. Oh, these aren't quite so well. Armor 26. So there's some pretty impressive there. I don't think there's anything else. There's just garrison there. So all round, the Taxila has some pretty powerful roster. Given the starting position, I think it's a pretty fun faction to actually play. And I think that's all I want to say about the roster. As I say, I recommend, guys, that you go and have a look at a custom battle. If I can find the time, I will do a video on the new appearances for Carthage, Rome and Taxila. But unfortunately, this being the summer, I can't really guarantee that I'm going to be able to find the time to do this. So I think that covers the main army roster. So I don't want to drag this out too much. But of course, the new resource is spice. This has been introduced, and Taxila is one of the 3 factions that provide spices. You've got Taxila, and we'll just flip out here. You've got Taxila here, you've got Bactria up here, and Saba there. You can just see there. And I'll give you a quick look at those other locations as we go through, but we'll just start with Taxila itself. And if you click on here, now you've got to be a bit careful, because if you look at this, you will say, well, where's the spices? Why does Taxila have spices? Is this a free resource? Well, it's actually down in here. You actually see it says here, the Pura produces plus 40 spices. So you have to hold Pura to be able to have access to the actual spice resource. It's not showing up as a local building there, which I really like the way that's actually been done. And the next thing I want to show you, we'll come back to that in a minute, is the fact that there are some subtle differences. We'll start with this one here. You'll see here that the Taxilans actually have a spice market. And again, if you look at it, you see tier 1, no spices. Tiers 2, you get 10 spices. But if I click on it, you actually need spices to do it. So again, this is what makes holding Pura very important, because if you were to lose Pura, you'd lose the ability to actually upgrade your spice market here and make lots and lots of cash. So this is something you need to be aware of, guys. The spices are hidden under the text there. Now what I want to do is draw your attention to the actual Eastern Governor's Palace. And if you see here, this is actually upgraded by gold, because the Taxilans actually have a spice market. What I want you to do is hold that comment in your mind. And what I'm going to do now is cut to Bactria to show you the differences between the 2 factions. So I'll see you in a minute. Welcome to the campaign start for Bactria. As you can see, the capital is showing spices exactly the same way as Taxila did, and that is coming from the region. So I think this is a moral of the story in now, that you're gonna have to pay a lot more attention to the region descriptions. I must confess that normally once I get past the few 20 or 30 turns, I tend to ignore those. I think from now on we're gonna have to pay a lot more attention to it. And what I want to do is emphasize the differences. You can see here, Bactria does not have the spice market building as Taxila has. What they actually got is the satrapy's residence. And what actually happens is when you get to level 3, you can see you can now trade spices, but you actually have to have spices in order to produce spices. And you got one level exactly the same, and you get 30 spices. Now, I know some of you guys may look at that and think that's a bit weird. Why do you, if you've got a region that produces spices, why do you actually need spices as a resource for building the satrapy's palace? Now, there's a very specific reason for that. It gives Bactria a bit of an advantage as long as they're holding their capital. which means they don't have a problem. But what you need to remember is that this building chain is shared with the Suchilids, and I think most of their satrapies as well. So what you're doing is that if you're playing as the Suchilids, in order to get this upgrade and produce your own spices, which could be very profitable, is you've actually got to get access to trade with either the Taxilid, the Bactrians, or the Sabaeans. So there's a bit of a catch-22 situation going on there, which is going to be quite an interesting mechanic to play with. The downside is that I think playing as Bactria and the Taxilids now may actually attract a bit of attention from the AI Suchilid Empire, so that could actually make life a little bit interesting. And I think just to round this up, I'll just have a quick look at this. You can see, I think just out of curiosity, 800, 1200, 1500. So this is, again, this is the different cultural building, nomadic immigrants. I think it's very similar to Carthage, and I'm not sure how you would use this in a Bactrian campaign. I think probably the same way as you would in the Carthage campaign. Now what I'm going to do is drop out of this Bactrian campaign, and we're going to go across and finish up this video with a quick look at the Sabaean conditions for spices as well. And of course there's the Marib Dam, which I want to show you, which has also been introduced in this update. So I'll see you once we get there, guys. Welcome to the Saba starting position. You can see it's located down in the Arabian Peninsula, and similar to the other two factions, you can see they get spices from the region, so there isn't anything within these buildings here. Now if you start this campaign, you always end up with a fairly strange building here. I think it's the Eastern Market. I'm not sure why you start that. So I'm actually one turn in because I had to knock the building down in order to look at these items here. And you can see, like the Taxilid start, these actually get the spice resource again. So again, it's an interesting start for the campaign. Very, very similar to Taxila. And you can see here your satrapies actually are built up with gold. So this is called an Eastern Governor's Powerless Satrap. So there are differences between this symbol. So again, it's a warning, guys. If you see this when you're playing a faction in the East, be aware of which one you need, whether you need gold or spices. And for any of you guys who played the vanilla game, which was introduced with the Power and Politics update, I think that it was this settlement that actually had the spices as part of the wider province, not the capital. So that's a big difference between the vanilla game and Dividi et Impera. And the other reason we've come in here is I want to show you guys the Marib Dam. This is a new feature for this update. You can see here we've got it gives sanitation, maintenance is going to be interesting. Bit of growth, bit of wealth. There's a growth in population, first, second and third class people. +6 sanitation. This could be quite powerful. The trouble is it's only for the province. I think the important thing is if you go down here, you see it says +8% wealth from agriculture, all regions. I think this is going to be one of these accumulative advantages as your empire grows. So obviously if you're starting here, you've only got a single province, you certainly wouldn't be building the Marib Dam in the first place, besides the fact it's very expensive. Of course you'd be concentrating on the army. But I think as this grows up, and your empire starts to spread, dropping in the Marib Dam is going to be quite a useful attribute to actually develop in the long term. Right guys, this is where I'm going to wind the video up. What I do recommend though is that given the strong focus on appearances, especially for Carthage and Rome, I would strongly recommend that you fire up the custom battle map, lay out some units, have a good look at them, maybe have a few mock battles just to see them in action. I mean, that's what I've been doing. I strongly recommend it. I take my hat off to the guys who've worked on these appearances. What they've done is well beyond my skill set, and I can really appreciate good work. Fantastic job, guys. And I think that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you found it interesting. Any questions, feel free to ask. In the video description there will be a link to the full release notes as delivered by Dresden. Another person. Thanks guys, you did a great job. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.